What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Nature of Being podcast. I'm your host, Mimi.
And I'm Katie.
And today we are talking about fear. So, we're going to talk about a couple different sides of fear. We're going to talk about how it's limiting you from your potential and experiences, and then how it infiltrates our decisions, kind of through systems of power and just through society. So, basically, kind of starting with that first side of fear, a lot of us are afraid to do the things that we want in life. Like, we don't want to take a leap of faith to start a new job or move to that city we've always been wanting to move to. And a lot of the times it's because of fear. And that, I guess, raises the question of like, how do we combat that? And how do we live our life not driven by fear? Because it drives so much of our decisions and how we choose to live our life.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I feel like two of the most powerful things in the world are love and fear. And they
Yes.
are by far the two things that can control people the most. And we as a society, instead of focusing on controlling people via love and having people do things out of love and having people go more towards that positive side, we've instead chosen to make people fear us and make people fear whatever it may be in order to get people to do what you want them to do. And it's kind of crazy to me how powerful I've noticed fear can be and how much I've noticed it is present in so many things within our society and so much within our government. And just, I mean, I could go on for days on how much fear-based power is found
Mm-hmm.
within our daily lives. And it's just alarming to me that I feel as though love can do the exact same thing, yet
Mm-hmm.
we've chosen fear instead. Creates fear, I feel like you can control people longer.
It's the
The more
greatest source of control is fear.
it it really is. I mean, it's one of the biggest reasons like every war has ever happened and every like so many things, it's all based upon fear. And people make so many decisions or don't make a lot of decisions. I mean, I think of how many decisions you don't make in your life because you're afraid of what's going to happen or you're afraid of a lot of the things we've talked about on previous episodes of
Mm-hmm.
what people will think of you. Um, and we allow it to not only other people to use it to control us, but we allow our own fear to control us as well.
Yeah. You said like a lot of good points, and it was one of the first things that you said in there that I wanted to say something about. I was thinking about how belief is maintained through fear, and like fear is maintained through division, and kind of, I don't know, almost like a pipeline of like all of these concepts that like feed each other.
Mhm.
Like,
Like the more you can get people to be feared, the more you can divide them.
yeah. And I guess in talking about fear and divisiveness, I think about belief and how that is like such a point of like contention within that.
Absolutely. There's a lot of fear in believing certain or not as much fear, I would say, but I mean, yeah, a lot of people believe that you have to believe certain things out of fear or out
Yeah.
of like and then by doing that and if people get people to believe certain things, then that divides them from the other people.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about this week how like this is going to sound really weird. So you have to like kind of bear with me when I say it. I was thinking about how like we've been told our whole lives, at least maybe I have, to like fight for what you believe in.
Mhm.
And I've been like sitting with that concept for a while of like, all these different people and places and things that are fighting for what they believe in by like fighting against other people.
Yeah.
So
It's
I,
it's almost fighting, it's like fighting hate with hate, you know?
yeah, like, and with everything going on in the world, and I don't know, I've been like sitting with that statement, and I've been thinking, is that like what it's cracked up to be?
No, yeah, and I think to a degree, yes. I think you should do that, but not if it's at the expense of someone else.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, totally. Yes, because like obviously we're sitting here, we're not like physically fighting, but we're like
Mhm.
saying what we believe, I guess, about the world and whatnot, right? And we should be able to do
Yes,
that. Like, I think there's a difference between like having a voice and like using your beliefs as like a weapon against other people.
absolutely. Like
That's
if
the point I'm trying to make.
yes, perfect. It all came full circle.
Yeah.
But absolutely, it's one of those things where if you believe it and you want to talk about it, that's absolutely okay, but not if you're trying to hurt other people to do it. Or like
Right.
if you're trying to again use it as a fear tactic to gain power over people,
Yeah. And I
and
think,
which I feel
sorry, I think too, like, I think there's a very thin line between like, well, maybe it's not that thin. I don't know. Because I think sometimes like there's people that believe something, and that belief has created a lot of suffering or a lot of division. Just for an
mhm,
example, like it's created some of these like things that I guess I would perceive to be very icky things that I don't like that. And then I think sometimes when people stand up against that and they're like, hey, I think that like spewing these beliefs can be harmful. I think sometimes the other side of that, people feel like, oh, that's an attack on me. So I think there's
yes,
like a thin line of like, what's a safe way to like go against like belief systems without hurting other people and without um like using it as a weapon against other people or hurting them. I know we're like totally
yeah.
on a different topic sort of right now, but it was on
Hey,
my
that's
mind.
okay. But I mean, it's funny because this was like the last episode when you were talking of everything you were saying right now. I was just thinking attachment. All these people are attached that they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're attacking me. You're using that as a weapon against me." It's like, "But why do you feel that way? Like, why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
You're attached to this idea that this is that only way." And um kind of tying that back to fear, like we think that a lack of familiarity and like a lack of like this is something else that's different, this is a different opinion, this is a different way
Hmm.
of thinking, this is a different way of living, we think that means a lack of safety because so then that's when we're like, oh no, you can't, I can't think that way, I can't do that, I can't because it's different.
Yeah.
And then that's where the fear comes into place when people are telling us to believe differently or people are telling us to do things differently and we don't know. We've never done it, so then we think automatically, "Oh, well, that can't be safe." The fear within you.
It's like that beautiful sentence that you said, I think 2 episodes ago, where you were like, is it what I've always known? Or what's the sentence?
Is is it is it really the truth or is it all I've ever known?
Yeah. And like realizing that like maybe that's just all you've ever known and not the truth is terrifying.
Mhm, it
I don't know
is.
I don't know if you've ever heard Ray explain this. This is a dualistic unity.
Oh, I'm sure I have. I've listened to damn near every
I
episode.
I swear to God, I think about this like every fucking day of my life. I think about the analogy that he made where he said belief is like standing on like a rocking chair. And it's
Mhm,
sometimes like you might be sturdy for a while. And then people start being like, hey, there's a hole here in that. This is sketchy. What do you think about that? Or like, they kind of poke holes in it, which starts to make the rocking chair like, oh, I can't balance anymore. Like it's getting shaky. And eventually if you are able to come to the realization that like maybe things aren't what I think they are, you're basically like flying off the rocking chair. It might not be a rocking chair. And how scary would it be to fly off a rocking chair?
Absolutely.
Like you'd be like, oh my God, you'd like might break your arm or something. Like
Mm-hmm.
it feels so scary to like, I guess the other analogy of like having the rug swept from out underneath you. It's like that
Yeah.
same thing. And he's like, that's what belief is. When you are standing on a rocking chair and it starts getting more and more shaky and you're like trying to stay stable on it, but at some point you can't stand on it any longer. You're going to fly off of it.
Yeah.
You're going to try
Absolutely.
so
And
hard not to because it's so scary. Like you're so afraid of everything you've always known maybe not being the whole truth.
yeah. And you want to believe that everything you're told is the truth and that it couldn't be any different because it's almost easier that way.
Yeah. Oh, it's
It's
so
and
much easier.
that and that's like one of the biggest things about belief as well is it's easier when you're giving away the credit to someone else almost
Mm-hmm.
because you're
Oh, we're getting into
believing.
it. Let's go.
We are. You started it.
I did. We're talking about
Um,
fear. Actually, we're talking about belief.
hey, they all tie hand in
They
hand
all tell you.
because
Mm-hmm.
but it's almost as though you are giving away credit, whether that be a good or bad thing, to
Yeah.
something else. So you don't believe that it could have been you that did it. It had to be the help of whatever you believe in. You
Yep.
know, that greater power, you almost have to give away the credit and be like, no, it was like whatever it was helped me do it. I
Yeah.
couldn't have done it without them. When in reality, you are literally the only one doing it.
Yeah.
And you are and that is why like, you are all those things that you think are above you. Like you think this higher power above you, like you could
Mm-hmm.
never be at that level. But the reality is we all are that. We all are doing those things that are
Yeah.
miraculous every single
Mm-hmm.
day. Like those miracles that happen, those incredible things that happen, that's you. All of those things that are it's you're doing it. And then also you give it away almost as a negative too, as though when you do something, a lot of people do bad things and they're like, well, it was the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then they use that as almost the exact opposite of
Mm-hmm.
excuse and being like, again, they're taking away the responsibility from themselves and
Mm-hmm.
pawning it off onto something else.
It's
And that can be
always,
used as both a negative and a positive.
or I find it really interesting, the like twists and turns and zigzags and up and around the corner, like that people will take to justify whatever's happening. So like you said,
Mhm.
like when something good happened, like I'm going to credit it to something else. And when something bad happened, I am maybe I'll credit to myself and something else. But then when something's bad, I'll like push the blame elsewhere. Like it
Mhm.
kind of like puts a gap between you and reality,
Oh,
very much
absolutely.
so.
And I think that is again fear. We fear being that close to reality a lot. We
Yeah.
fear that if we don't have that gap, then everything will feel just a little too real,
Mm-hmm.
and our whole experience will seem just a little bit too much like we have control, which we do.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us don't want to admit that we have as much control as we do because it's easier if we don't. It's easier if we can just blame X, Y, and Z on it. Whatever that
Totally.
is, it's easier to do that than it is to actively recognize that you have the power to be anything that you want to be.
Exactly. It another thing I thought is that makes me so sad when I see somebody do something amazing, like, you know, fight off a disease or run a marathon. I'm like, no, you did that. You
Mhm.
fucking did that. Okay. Like, but the other side of that is there something to be said for a placebo effect?
I think if you would always find another way, you know? I think
Yeah.
that's what it is. I think that it's that we want something to be there to make everything easier.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why it's become so popular and that's why it is so ingrained. It's because it does make so many things easier when you have an answer.
Yeah.
It's that again that we want to always settle upon an answer. We want to know the answer. We want to attach to an answer, a truth. We want that. We love that.
Yes.
As human beings, we love attaching to the truths of what we think are is the world. And that is just another one of those things.
But the truth is, you will never have an answer. And that is
No.
the most insane, like almost like spiritual awakening feeling that you will ever have in your life is when you realize, holy fuck, I need to stop searching for answers because I'm not going to find them. I
No.
absolutely will not find answers. The answer
No.
is stop looking, like stop
Well,
trying
and
to
to keep
attach,
yes, stop trying to attach, but always question things and never settle upon things.
never settle on an
Like,
answer. Yes.
yes, exactly. Like as you're asking the questions, you don't need there to be an answer to the question. It's just more that you want to keep asking the question. And every point in life, the answer to that question is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And for every person, that answer to that question is different based on your experience, based on your environment, based on the people around you. You know, all of these
Mm-hmm.
things are only it's all relative. It's
Mm-hmm.
all and so by settling upon an answer, you're just closing yourself off to all the other ideas. But again, it is terrifying to not have an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just another way. It's so easy to control via fear because if you give someone an answer, you're giving them clarity. You're giving them like, oh, like that just calmed all the fear that I had in my life. It's like,
Yes.
obviously, whoever's telling me this must be powerful, must be all knowing, must be
Mm-hmm.
someone I should follow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how people get them to follow them is they scare them and then they give them a solution to the fear. When really they're never giving them a solution. They're just manipulating them.
That's
And
exactly what
fear is the
manipulation is.
easiest
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's absolutely the easiest way to manipulate people is by getting them terrified first.
I mean, I think about how many beliefs and ideas and systems like literally could not exist without fear. Like
Yeah.
it is, they could not stand on their own 2 feet without fear.
Mhm.
Fear drives everything.
I mean, all the systems of power within our own country are the perfect example of that. I mean, pharmaceutical companies
Mm-hmm.
are such a prime example of that is they're going to give you an answer, but
Mm-hmm.
that answer is truly just covering up your symptom. It's not trying to get to the
Mm-hmm.
cause. It's not actually trying to solve anything.
One that I have to like sit on a little bit more because,
We could have a
um,
whole episode on Big Pharma.
yeah, I used
We have a
to
lot.
have really strong opinions about big pharma. And I think there's like a line because it's not the solution.
Mm-mm.
Um, it's not getting to the root cause. Like I admire Eastern medicine because that's
Mhm.
actually what they try to do. But I also think that sometimes it's just incredibly dangerous for some, not all people, but I think there's a good number of people that I don't know. Sometimes I think band-aids can be necessary.
But a lot of these are you're prescribed something with no given end date of when you're supposed to stop.
No, it's like for
Like
life.
just yeah, as needed for the rest of your life. I mean, some of the medications I was put on as a female with say acne, I was put
Yeah.
on acne medication. It wasn't even acne medication. It was a
high blood pressure medication. I don't know if this is like the best thing for me to be taking. And again, he was like, if you take this, my dermatologist at the time was like, if you take this forever, you probably will never have problems with acne ever again. I'm like, you want me to be, I was maybe 20, 21
Yeah.
when I got prescribed this. I'm like, you want me to be on high blood pressure medication for the rest of my life? And I don't have high blood pressure?
They're saying now that like all of us, like I don't even know, like generationally, but I know that like me and all my peers when we were like 16, we all got put on like the birth control pill.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And now like all of us are mid 20s, mid 30s, whatever. They're like coming out and being like, oh yeah, if you're on that shit for too long, turns out it can give you like ovarian cysts or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
There's
oh, why the fuck did nobody tell me that?
there's or blood clots that are killing people. I mean, that's a huge problem
Yeah,
with
blood clots. Yeah. And they never like told us that. I guess it was maybe in the fine print, but like who reads that?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, it's always in the fine print.
But like most of us, I mean, a lot of us, like I remember, I think when I started the pill, I was probably like 15 or 16 and like my just like period was super heavy. And they're like, oh, we'll put you on the pill. Like that was always like the band-aid for everything. Like, oh, put you on the pill,
acne.
get on the pill, acne,
Yep.
like heavy
Your
flow, like
periods.
whatever it is. But it's interesting because I've known my hormones have been out of whack. I've been off the pill for like 3 years, by the way. I did get off of that, but
Yeah,
I've just had other hormone issues and just weird health issues my whole life. And my doctor was like, you know, she tests for PCOS or whatever, checks my levels for it to see if like that's a factor or whatever, because I've had like similar symptoms, but then I never have it. And then she's like, oh, well, we're going to put you on a medication for diabetics, for type 2 diabetics. But it's been proven to also aid in, they give it to people who have PCOS because it like helps with fertility and all this other stuff. So like, I don't know that it's necessarily bad that like what it was originally made for isn't what it's being used for, but I guess the question is like, what's going to happen down the line?
absolutely.
And we don't know that.
No.
But like,
again, we're scared to not know what's going to happen right now, that we take so many things blindly. And I think that's the problem, is that everything's passed out like candy and we take it blindly.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the same thing with our whole entire food industry too. But
oh my God, that's what I was going to say is like the fucking shit ass food that we eat in this country. Like that's what's making us so sick, or at least it's a big part of it, which keeps us going to big pharma, which keeps like, it's like a whole circle of like disgustingness.
It's all just a cycle that they all just feed off of each other, and they play into people's emotions and play into whatever it is, and they get people to
imagine what like America's health would be like if we stopped the bullshit hustle culture, we gave people work-life balance, and we gave them real fucking food.
Like, and we taught people at a younger age like what the benefits of what it would be to eat whole foods and to not
like I don't think big pharma would have, I don't think it would be big pharma, I think it would be little pharma if we fix those things. And then like the people who really need pharmaceuticals to like function, like you think about like antipsychotics or people with extreme depression, like there's a lot of people that like literally will kill themselves if they're not medicated. So I think there's definitely
like insulin, you know, like things that you absolutely, your body's not producing
100%. So there's a time and place for pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely. Kind of going back to like a lot of the times we don't even realize that we are being controlled by fear because it's disguised as something else, and usually like something positive. You think of it as, I mean, even having like a child, whether a lot of people totally meant to be parents, a lot of people totally not meant to be parents. But having a child and like
it's such a happy thing. And everybody seems to think like, I need to pass on my genes. If I'm not contributing to society. And because of that, a lot of people have kids when they don't actually want to be parents, but out of fear of like not fitting into the societal standard of having kids and passing on your genes and like contributing to society, you have them for the wrong reasons.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah.
And it's so sad. I mean, there's so many people that have kids for the wrong reasons, and like the only person that's really hurting is the kid.
Oh my gosh. It's so harmful to the child. I mean, like that, the feeling of not being like wanted, or like later on, if there's, I don't know. And there's nothing wrong with like realizing later on that like maybe that wasn't the best decision. But this reminded me of, I actually saw it. So on TikTok, there's like a on this day a year ago or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it popped up a couple days ago, and I was stitching a video, and I think it might have been Tucker Carlson. And this is very fear-based, because he was talking about how like this new wave of women that are like, I don't really want kids. And for some reason, it's really pissing off men. I could go on a whole tear about why it's pissing them off, but it's just a little, it's a whole tear. But he was talking about how women don't want to have kids because they think that they want to live these free lives. But like, talk to them in 20 years when they're 45 and they have 7 cats and no husband and all these things. And I'm like, what do you mean? I want 7 cats. I want freedom to do whatever I want. Like
you just described my dream life.
Described a really awesome life. But like, think about how fear-based it is. It's like, if we tell women you're going to be lonely and your life is going to suck. Oh, just think about it. Like, how you're going to feel. Like, that is more than enough for women to think, oh God, maybe I should just have kids. Like, maybe I'm not fully ready, or maybe I don't have both my feet in this, but I don't want to feel like that when I'm 40.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't want to be alone. And you almost think as though it's the same idea of like everyone telling everyone, if you don't get married, what's wrong with you?
Yes. Exactly.
It's
the same thing with kids.
It's the same fear-based mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, if you don't do it, then this is what will happen.
But
instead of being like, oh, that's a different way of living. Cool. I'm super excited to see where you end up. Like, maybe learn from you along the way. Like, you don't have to you don't have to want to live the same life as them, but respect that they want to live theirs differently than you.
Well, people can't, because they're like projecting their own fears.
Yes.
Onto the person who's living fearlessly. And they see someone living fearlessly and they're like, ooh, that makes me scared. So I'm going to project that on you and try to make you also scared, which I know is like probably coming from a place of love sometimes. Like, if a family member's like, I just really think you should have kids. Like, you should think hard about this. Like, they're the best thing in my life. And whatever it is, that projection, like, it's coming, if it's like, like that, it could be coming from a place of love, but like, it's just them projecting their fear. So,
and a lot of the times it's because people become so like, their kids become their entire life, and then when they get older, they're like, well, they didn't do other things outside of like having their kids, so then it's like, for them, that was their everything, which is great, but then they struggle to envision that you could have something other than, like, they struggle. They're like, well, my kid is my whole life, so like, what other option is there? Like, you have to have kids 'cause they will be your whole life, and it's like, no, like, I love that I like, your kid was your whole life. But if you don't want your kid to be your whole life, then you maybe shouldn't be having kids, because they do become such a large part of your life. So like, you have to want that to be a large part of your life. And I think a lot of people don't recognize that. There is just so many things that other people project their own fears onto you. And then in doing that, we spend so much time fearing things that we can't do
Mm-hmm.
instead of having faith in ourselves that we can do other things.
Yeah.
You know, we think so much like, oh, I can't do this without someone else with me. I'm too afraid. Or I
Mm-hmm.
can't do this without a degree. Or I
Mm-hmm.
can't do this without the support of my family. Or I can't do this without another whatever it is. You know, there's so many things that you could be like, I can't, instead of just being like, but what if I did it anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Like, doing things scared, doing things terrified is literally the only way you're ever going to grow. The
Mm-hmm.
only way to grow is outside of your comfort zone. So if you stay inside of your comfort zone your entire life, you're absolutely going to stay in the same place. But if you think about those things that terrify you and you're like, you know what? I'm going to do it scared. I'm going to do it
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what anyone thinks of me. I'm going to do it regardless of if I have enough experience to do it. I'm going to do it regardless of literally anything. As long as you are willing to do things a little scared, you're going to be amazed because once you do that thing a little bit scared, even if that just be, say, you're out and about on a walk and you're a super shy person and like social interactions scare you. Even if you just like on your walk said hi to a couple people passing by,
Mm-hmm.
automatically that's outside your comfort zone. And that it might have been terrifying and you might have been like, holy shit, like, why did I just do that? But then you know what else you did? You just proved to yourself that you could do it.
Yes.
And imagine if you had that mindset with everything. If you just like, even if I take a big, you don't have to go jump off a bridge. Like, you don't have to go
Mm-hmm.
take the largest leap towards the thing that scares you the most. I'm not saying you have to do that, but you have to do a little thing that scares you all the time,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the only way you're ever going to prove to yourself that you can do it.
Yeah, totally. Um, it's like if you have a fear of heights, maybe when you recognize that that's a big fear you have, maybe don't like book like jumping out of a plane for like next week. Like, okay, I think we could take some little steps towards that. Like go on a roller coaster,
Yep. Or even climb to the top of a ladder,
climb a ladder, yes.
you know? And
Stand
then the
on
more
the
and more
side of
you like,
something.
yeah,
I don't
like,
know. Yeah.
and having it just be those like little steps, and the more and more you go outside your comfort zone, the more and more you recognize that you have the
Mhm.
capability of doing those things that scare you, and the more and more the fear starts to fade away.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of the coolest part, is it's all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I don't have to be controlled by my fear. I can actually kind of control it.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a powerful realization to have when you're like, "Oh, wait.
Totally.
Yes, I'm terrified, but I'm doing it anyway."
I think a lot of people are like waiting for when they're not going to be scared anymore, but they're
Mhm.
also waiting for like all the stars to align. And sometimes the stars do align, but like a lot of the time, you're going to do it a little sloppy. You're going to do it messy. It's not going to be perfect. Like, you're not going to have all the tools in the world. You're not going to have all the resources to do it, but like, you have to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
Like, eventually, we're going to look back on this podcast and maybe listen to some of like the first episodes, and we might be like, ooh, maybe these will be doozies eventually to us.
Oh,
But like,
absolutely.
but we had to start somewhere because we wanted to do this, and it's scary. And like sometimes I don't always want to repost certain things on my like personal Instagram because I'm like, ooh, controversial. Like I know who
Mhm.
might see that and they might be like, oh, that's really who Mimi is. But like,
Yeah, I mean, I've absolutely thought that several
yeah,
times. I mean, even, like, some of the things we put on the podcast, I'm like, "Okay," like,
buckle
it is
up.
a little scary to, like,
Totally. It's
and
very scary
especially
to
I've
be so
never done
candid.
this before. This whole,
Mhm.
like, I mean, I talk a lot, but this whole, like, putting all this out, like, I've never just sat there, and especially, like, the videos we were putting on TikTok and stuff, I've never just sat there and recorded myself talking,
Yeah.
ever. It was terrifying the first couple times I did it, and I was like, "Oh my god, like, what are people gonna think?" And then the more and more, but I was like, "You know what? There's no way that this podcast is gonna reach more people if I don't, put in the effort to
Yeah.
make that possible." And so then the more and more I made them and the easier it's gotten, and now I love it. I actually
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoy it. And
Mhm.
that's, like, it's so funny. It's something that, like, I used to literally cringe at, be
Mhm.
like, I mean, this is actually really funny. You don't know this, but I used to watch your videos that you would put on
Mhm.
your Snapchat
Yeah.
and be like, "How does this girl just, like, talk into the camera?" And this was before I knew you too. Like, I knew you, but, like, we
Yeah, we
weren't
weren't,
friends,
like,
and I was like,
close.
"This girl's, like, actively, like, how does she just, like, talk into her camera? Like, how does she do that?" Like, there's no I used to sit there all the time and watch your Snapchats and be like, "There's no way I could ever do this." I
Mhm.
could never be, like, that confident in what I'm saying to where I could just
Yeah.
talk into a camera and then post it on the internet. God forbid I post
Yeah.
that on the internet.
Online for
Like,
strangers to
people could
see.
see that? People can judge
Yeah.
me? Like,
People can
I
perceive
actively
me.
used to think that all the time about your
Yeah.
content, but I was always like, I mean, like, I wish I could, but I can't do that.
Oh my
And now
god.
look at us.
So that is something because I've been, like, doing this sort of thing for several years now, and I guess at first it was probably like that for me too, but now it's so far away that I don't even remember a time where I couldn't be like, "Blah, blah, 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 blah," and then not care,
Yeah.
Like, because that to
Mhm.
me feels so far away now, and I'm just so used to it, but I've had so many people tell me I could never do that. I think it's so cool that you do that, but I could never do that, and I just wanna, like, shake them and be like, "You literally could if you just stopped fucking telling yourself that." Because
So
that's the
much of it is a
only
story.
like, that's the only reason that like, again, if it's something that you wanna do, that's the only reason that you're not doing it, is because 'cause you're telling yourself that
Absolutely.
you can, and yes, you're afraid, like, I or I could
Yeah,
never do that, I'm not that person, like, what is that person? Because you could be that person, because you have the potential to be anything that you wanna be at any moment.
absolutely. But again, you're terrified of, in that case, like,
Mhm.
what other people are gonna think of you.
Yeah.
You're like, "Well, I could never do that." Like, people would judge me, my family would judge me, I mean,
You
even a lot of the things that we talk about on this is certain, there's certain things that we've talked about that I have not had these conversations with, say, my family or some of my friends
Mhm.
because they think differently than me, and
Yeah.
I respect their opinions, and I respect them, and there's certain things that I'm like, "Let's just not bring this up because we don't need to start, like, a fight."
Yeah.
And there's definitely times where when we've been recording where I'm like, "Yeah, so and so is gonna think certainly of this," you know?
We had a whole section on our last actually several sections on our last episode that I totally hacked out because Haiti, Katie and I were like, maybe not yet.
And
We'll get
again, that
there.
was, we're not perfect, that was our own fear
That was our own
right
fear.
there.
Like,
Yes, and I mean, everybody that's listening to this out everybody out there that's listening to this, I want you all to pick one thing that you're afraid of,
mhm,
whether that be something huge or whether that be something as small as, like, trying a new food, and I want you to just do it, and do it scared. Do it,
mhm,
don't wait till you're comfortable to do it, because that's where the growth happens. That's
mhm.
where the belief in yourself and the belief in your own ability comes from, is when you
Yeah.
do it scared and you recognize that you just did it. You just did it regardless of having the tools that society has told you you need to do it.
Yes.
And again, we as a society have placed so much fear into everyone because we want to control them. We don't want people to have their own opinions. We don't want people to think differently. We don't want people to think outside the box. So if we just scare them into not thinking and not
Mhm.
asking the questions, um, kind of like moving on from that, but also kind of within the same realm of it. We find the fear in not knowing things and not knowing how things are going to turn out, and that's, I think, the biggest reasons why we, like,
we're afraid of things. It's not that we're afraid of the action, it's more that we're afraid of the outcome. Um,
Mhm.
and
Totally.
we are terrified of not knowing. Yet we can never really know. We need to trust the process and stop needing to understand it and
Yeah.
know everything that's going to happen in every little thing. And we need to recognize that we can never really be anything other than what we are right here and right now. Um, and so the more we fear things and fear outcomes and fear what's going to happen next, the less we're living in the now and the less we're being
Mhm.
present and the less we're experiencing what's happening right in front of us. Because instead of just doing the thing, you're like, well, what's going to happen if I do the thing? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't do it then. Or
Mhm.
as you're doing something, instead of being like, holy shit, I'm doing this right now, you're like, oh, nope, nope. All these things are going to go wrong. Like, shit, I just made a mistake. Instead of just trusting that it's going to be okay and it's going to work itself out. And you just did something that's different and new and exciting. And that's awesome. And you just learned something new and you just had a moment of growth. And
Mhm.
that's incredible. And you don't need to know where it's going to take you or why you did it or what it's going to mean in 10 years from now. You just need to know that you did it.
Mhm.
You had the capability of doing it and that you literally have the capability of doing anything.
Sometimes I think that it's funny when you think about it that a lot of people don't think that just conquering a fear is enough. Like it's almost like
Mhm,
it's not enough unless there's like this super awesome outcome. Because maybe the
mhm.
outcome kind of sucks, but like, what if the outcome was just that you tackled that
Exactly.
instead of
And
attaching to anything more than that?
mhm. I mean, even like I was the example I gave earlier today, if you were just walking down the street and you just said hi to people, in your head, there was no outcome.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, there was. You did something you've never
Did
done
it.
before.
Yeah.
And you don't know, maybe you saying hi to that person down the street made their entire day. You don't know. And that's the thing too. We don't even know the impact that we have on people. And if we don't put
No.
ourselves out there, and if we don't try new things, and if we don't do things that terrify us, we're never going to be able to have an impact in this world. And we're never going to be able to have people get to know us. And we're never going to get to know ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, we're always going to be living in this fear of, oh, but what if? But what? How about you just like experience what is?
What if it turns out fucking great?
And
And
a
it
lot of
might.
the times it does.
Does. And I think it's great enough if you just tried it. I think that can be a win in itself.
Absolutely.
And that we should start treating that like the win that it really is.
Hmm. And stop degrading ourselves for if we try something new. Because again, you're going to try something new. You're not going to be great at it. If you went and picked up a paintbrush right now and you've never painted before, you're not going to paint like Picasso. I mean, maybe there's a 1 in a million chance you are the next Picasso. And if so, you never would have known if you didn't try. But for the
Exactly.
average person,
Yeah.
you're not going to become Picasso. But what if instead of thinking of the outcome of, oh, if I pick up a paintbrush, I have to paint a beautiful painting, and instead be like, oh, I'm picking up this paintbrush. And as you're going through it, wow, this is actually kind of relaxing. Oh, this is kind of cool. Oh, that kind of looks cool. Oh, and then you find yourself like not thinking about maybe something that stressed you out. And maybe you find painting to be a sense of meditation. And maybe
Mhm.
you never get good at it per se, based on like what other people would consider. But maybe to you, it's an outlet that you just found that you
Mhm.
never found before because you were always afraid of, well, if I paint, I'm not going to be any good at it. So why even
Mhm.
try? I
Isn't it
mean, we
funny
do
how we think we have to be good at things for it to be like a valid
worth our
hobby or
time.
whatever?
Hmm.
Like you don't have to be good at anything. You can just
No.
be and you can just enjoy the thing. Because sometimes things are more enjoyable when you're not trying to get better at them too. Like when you
Hmm.
can just be in it. Like painting is a great example. Like I got a longboard a few months ago. I'm surprised I haven't fallen on my face yet. Like, it's hard. I'm not amazing at it, but like, it's fun. I just kind of want to stroll down a street on my
Mhm.
longboard, and that's fine. That's enough. But it was scary enough to try that new thing, and I think that's a win.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, moving somewhere across the country is another example. Like
mhm.
it's absolutely terrifying. I've done it several times. And it's so you have no idea where you're going, or even if you do know where you're going, you have no idea how it's going to turn out, and you could let the fear of not knowing keep you from doing it. I mean, I know you've done it too. You moved all the
Mhm.
way to Colorado, and obviously I moved from Colorado to Minnesota. We traded
Mhm.
places, and you know, we both could have not done it 100% out of fear. We could have been like, nope, too scary, too unknown. I don't know the outcome of that. Nah, can't do that. But instead, we didn't.
We
And we
did it
both
anyways.
we did it anyways. So, pretty much the moral of this episode is, don't let fear control you. And when you see that something scares you, and this is a quote that I have lived by since almost as long as I can remember. If the next thing doesn't terrify you, then it's probably not the right decision. Because if it
Period.
scares you, that means it's outside of your comfort zone, and that means that you're going to grow from it. And there's never, ever a growth is always something you should be striving for. So
Yeah. The
do it
bubble
and be
is
scared.
boring. Pop the bubble.
Yes.
Pop the
Live
bubble you're in.
outside the box.
Hmm.
Live outside your
So
comfort zone. Life is so fun.
it is. It's been fun. So,
It has
kind of
been.
to wrap from there, obviously, you guys know, follow us on our socials: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, right? That's all of them. Should all be at Nature of Being
Yeah.
Pod. And then you know where to find us on Spotify. Just type in Nature of Being Podcast. You might be listening to us already on Spotify, or maybe you're watching us on YouTube. And then if you can give us a rate/review, should be somewhere on our Spotify or Apple. You can click it, give us whatever star you want. And then if you could write us a little review. And then if you have any questions or comments that you want to give us, we would love to bring them up on our episode, on our next episode, or one in the near future. And thanks for listening.
Yes, thanks so much for joining us, and can't wait to decide what we're going to talk about next.
We'll see what happens next. But this is the last episode for the year of 2023, which is
the
also
start.
totally made up.
Yes, time isn't real, guys.
Time is not real. The years, didn't
Maybe
the
that's what the
Aztecs
next
make them up? That would be a good topic. It's
That
not
would
real,
be.
but we will follow those parameters of saying that this is the last one of this year.
Yes, technically based on the calendar that we're all sent out.
Yes. And maybe a little tease at the fact that 2024 is going to be a little more exciting with the Nature of Being podcast. So
yes,
just
we're getting outside our comfort zone.
Yes, we are. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening to us the last chunk of 2023. It's been fun.
Yes. Can't wait to see y'all next year.
See you guys next year. All right.
Bye.
Bye.